It was early morning on the 13th of June 1944, just 1 week after D-Day. The residents of London looked up to see a most peculiar sight. It appeared to be an object that took the form of a short-winged monoplane. A strange buzzing sound emanated from its motor. It rumbled through the sky at 400 miles per hour. Minutes later, the engine abruptly cut out and the aircraft plummeted towards the ground. Its 850-kilogram warhead struck a railway bridge and detonated. The resulting explosion killed 6 people and wounded 30 more. 200 would be made homeless. The British had just bore witness to Vergeltungswaffen 1, Vengeance Weapon 1, the jet-propelled V-1 flying bomb, known also as the buzz bomb or Doodle Bug, would take modern warfare in a new and frightening direction. I'm Liam Smith with Agent Smith Voice Productions, and in today's World War II video, I'll be taking a closer look at this terrifying weapon and how it operated. Due to the beach landings in Normandy, France, and the concentrated carpet bombing campaigns by Allied bombers during the day and night, Germany's ability to maintain and manufacture supplies for the war effort was severely hampered. In retaliation for these bombings, Adolf Hitler sought a weapon to combat and terrorize the British populace. The result was the V-1 flying bomb, the first of 2 vengeance weapons. The second of these was the V-2 rocket, with the third vengeance weapon being planned but never put into fruition. Whilst Wernher von Braun was progressing slowly with the development of the highly advanced V-2 rocket, the Luftwaffe was constructing the V-1 at Peenemünde Airfield. Codenamed the Cherry Stone, it was designed by Robert Lusser, and the prototype was originally designated as the Fi-103. Its first official test flight only lasted for 60 seconds, and subsequent launchings failed miserably. But Hitler saw enough potential in this new weapon to continue its development. The activities at Peenemünde eventually caught the attention of British intelligence. They knew that Germany was developing secret weapons, but never knew what they consisted of. It was not until 1943 that enough vital information was gathered via flying reconnaissance to take the threat seriously. Thus, a bombing raid was organized by Bomber Command to destroy the facilities and scientists. The raid severely damaged the rocket testing sites at Peenemünde. However, this did not impact Hitler's new terror weapon, the V-1 flying bomb. Due to the bombing raids, construction would be forced underground, and many of the V-1s were produced by forced labor in substandard working conditions. By 1944, the V-1s were being secretly transported by railroad to their launch sites on the northern coast of France, and they were pointing towards London. The V-1 was quite simply a pilotless, short-winged monoplane powered by an Argus pulse jet engine. This engine was a welded steel tube with an air intake grill supporting a set of spring-loaded steel slats. Between these slats were atomizers, which sprayed fuel into the combustion chamber. A spark plug would ignite this fuel as it was being injected. The slats fed air into the combustion chamber by opening up and would close during the combustion process. They would open again to let in new air, and all this occurred at considerable high speeds. It was these steel slats on the air intake grill that produced the distinctive pulsing motorbike sound that gave the V-1 the infamous name of the buzz bomb. The top speed of the V-1 was between 340 to 400 miles per hour, and it was equipped with a simple guidance system that utilized a gyroscope and compass to regulate the altitude, speed, and bearing on target. The missile flew for a predestined amount of time, with ranges varying from 150 miles to 250 miles. At the heart of the V-1 were a pair of air bottles which supplied power via special valves for the gyroscope, autopilot, and fuel injection system. What made this weapon so terrifying was not just the pulsing sound of the jet motor, but when the V-1 reached its destination, the engine would abruptly cut out due to fuel starvation. What followed was an eerie moment of silence before the warhead impacted into the ground and detonated. The first method of firing the V-1 was a sled mounted on steel rails on top of a ramp. The missile was moved via hand onto a special support cradle. Once in firing position, the V-1 will be fired rapidly by a 3-positioned switch. This switch ignited the jet and steam-generated catapult launch system and pushed the jet to maximum power. Roughly 7 seconds later, the intensive pressure building up caused the catapult to thrust the warhead forward at high speed. This sheared off a 6mm holding pin and released the missile support cradle. In less than a second, the V-1 would be airborne and flying towards its target in a straight line. The next method of launching the missile was by a modified aircraft during combat conditions, with extensive testing on aircraft such as the Heinkel HE-111. It increased the V-1's effective range and lessened its reliance on fixed launch sites. Whilst the V-1 caused massive amounts of destruction, the British were able to set up effective countermeasures against this new weapon. One of these were barrage balloons, which were erected with huge cables. These were designed to rip the wings off any flying machine that flew into them. They eventually accounted for destroying 232 flying bombs. Another defensive measure were anti-aircraft guns. The British soon realized that if they concentrated these guns on the V-1 flying bombs long before they reached their target, they had a better chance of destroying them. To assist the anti-aircraft guns were 2 highly effective American defense weapons. One of these was a radar system that would plot the course of the flying bomb to allow for the guns to have greater accuracy. The second was a specialized proximity fuse in the gun shells, which when fired would explode when in close contact with the V-1, allowing misses to turn into a hit. This highly effective strategy allowed the gunners to shoot hundreds of V-1s out of the sky. Another tactic in combating the V-1 was utilized by the Royal Air Force. They deployed modified Supermarine Spitfires with the Rolls-Royce Griffon engine and the Hawker Tempest fighter. Many V-1s were destroyed by Tempests and Spitfires that flew above the missile, then diving down and getting in close behind it before firing a short burst. If a pilot was spent of ammunition, he adopted an exceptionally dangerous maneuver by getting in close to the V-1 and tipping its wings to send it off course. A couple of years ago, I made a short video about an Australian Spitfire pilot who adopted this technique of flipping the bomb off course. Link is in the description down below. By August 1944, only 1 bomb in 7 were able to successfully reach London. More than 10,000 V-1s were launched during the course of the Second World War, and over 2,400 managed to hit London. 24,000 civilians were either killed or seriously injured. Over 750,000 houses were extensively damaged. But the danger was far from over, for the British would soon face an even greater threat, the V-2 rocket. Eventually, V-1 attacks on London effectively ceased to operate when the last launch site was overrun and captured on the 29th of March 1945 by advancing Allied forces. However, other cities like the vital Allied port of Antwerp were in the firing line, and compared to London, it was much harder to defend because the V-1 had a shorter flight path to the target. The V-1 certainly heightened a sense of anxiety into the British populace, but just like the London Blitz, their morale could not be broken. Like all of the Nazi Wunderwaffens, it couldn't turn the tide of the Second World War in Germany's favour. Before COVID-19, I was able to visit the Australian War Memorial in Canberra in 2019. This is one of my photos of the infamous V-1 flying bomb. Next time in my history videos, the terrifying Japanese banzai charges. Thank you so much as always for watching. I really enjoy making these history videos. And don't forget to give us a like and to subscribe for more content. Finally, a shout out to my awesome subscribers for your ongoing support of the channel. Liam Smith with Agent Smith Voice Productions. Until then, stay tuned, I'll see you next time.